Thank you very much for the introduction, Sam. I appreciate that. And I certainly want to welcome everyone to today's session. I appreciate you being willing to take some time out of your day because I know that we're all very busy. But I also know that Visa and Regulation E can present a lot of challenges to what we do on a daily basis. Because unfortunately, on the one hand, we have the regulation that we have to comply with. And then on the other hand, we have our contract with Visa, which sets a completely different set of rules. And so determining when we've got a claim on our desk, which set of rules we have to follow, whether it's both, whether it's one, whether it's the other, that can be very frustrating. And what that can lead to is the bank possibly paying out on claims that it otherwise wouldn't need to, possibly paying out more on claims than it may possibly need to. And so for the next couple hours, we're just going to have a conversation about comparing the Visa rules to Reg E, looking at the differences between business and personal cards. Visa has made some changes that are upcoming this month to their zero liability coverage, so we want to touch base on those updates and what that means for us. And certainly we want to look at the chargeback process because that certainly is the primary mode that we have available to us for conducting our Reg E investigations. But as I hope we're going to learn today, it's not the only method that's available to us when performing an investigation. And as much as possible, we're going to incorporate case studies so that you can see in the real world what are the situations that could possibly apply to the various chargebacks that we're going to talk about. As Sam alluded to, we're certainly going to try to get a 5-minute break in the middle of the presentation, give us a chance to get up from the computer screen, give us a chance to digest some of the information that we've received, and certainly feel free to ask questions as they come up during the presentation. So to begin, we're going to touch base about what are our responsibilities, and we're specifically talking about our contractual responsibilities with Visa. What is the minimum standards that Visa sets for us as we handle transactions that come in through our institutions? First and foremost, we have an obligation to honor all transactions, and this doesn't always flow as smoothly as we'd like. When we receive a transaction file on a daily basis, there always seems to be a few rejects, whether it is for insufficient funds, whether you have a merchant that has forced a transaction on a card that has been closed or deactivated. And so we're stuck with these trying to figure out, do we have to take the loss in these situations? Or can we pass that along to the customer? Can we pass it back to the merchant? What are the options that we have available to us? And so in these instances, we are obligated to try to honor all transactions. And when we get into the chargeback process, we're going to find some times where that just doesn't work, and we'll talk about the chargeback rights that are available to us. But first and foremost, we have to try to honor all of these transactions. Secondly, it's very important to Visa that they protect their card brand. And as issuers, we have a contractual obligation to assist Visa in protecting their card brand. And one of the ways that we do that is we have an obligation to assist customers in any way possible. And so this is going to include circumstances where maybe Reg E does not apply to the claim that they're bringing to us, but Reg E does have some options for us to be able to help them out and help them get their money back. When those circumstances apply, we do have to assist the customer if at all possible. And lastly, we have to make sure we avoid any unjust enrichment, either for our customer or for ourselves. And this specifically applies to circumstances where we filed a chargeback on a cardholder's behalf, and in the meantime, the merchant has also issued the cardholder a refund. So in those instances, the cardholder ends up with 2 credits, one from the merchant, one from the bank. So obviously, we're going to deduct the duplicate credit from their account, but we're not allowed to keep that money. So the merchant, if they've responded to a chargeback and given money on a chargeback, as well as issuing a refund, that extra charge, they're entitled to get that back. So the customer doesn't get to keep the extra money. The bank doesn't get to keep the extra money. That has to be returned to the merchant when there's a duplicate credit like that. when we look at Visa and Reg E coverage, and within your materials, I have listed directly from Reg E, section 1005.11a, the 7 circumstances that Reg E considers to be an electronic funds transfer error. And I've kind of summarized that in the bullet points that you have on this slide. So first and foremost is any fraudulent or unauthorized transaction. So a customer comes in, says, hey, I didn't do this charge, I didn't benefit from this charge. That's going to be covered by Reg E. But secondly, if there is an incorrect electronic funds transfer, and so that could be maybe I made a purchase at a restaurant, and because I'm such a jerk in person, for those of you who have met me, you know that, the waitress decides she's going to add an extra $100 to the tip because she had to put up with me for a couple of hours while I was in the restaurant. So my $50 dinner turns into a $150 charge on my account. I can file a claim for that. That is considered an incorrect electronic funds transfer, even though I authorized the purchase. But I didn't authorize $150, I only authorized $50. So that is a claim the bank will have to investigate. One that really can trip us up is the omission of an electronic funds transfer, and that would be a missing credit. So if I return merchandise to a merchant, and they say, okay, you'll have your refund in 7 to 10 business days, just check your bank account, and a month later, I still don't have the money. I have the right to then come in and file a claim saying, hey, there should have been a credit to my account, and there wasn't. And again, the obligation to investigate that under Reg E is going to fall on the bank. So that's Reg E. What does Visa have to say about this? Well, all of those Reg E claims, Visa also covers, and they, in many instances, do have chargeback options that we'll talk about a little later. But Visa is also going to help out cardholders if they have ordered merchandise online and they've never received it. Or say that we ordered something that was pink and we received something that was blue, so the merchandise was wrong. And I'm seeing that more and more with fraudulent eBay vendors, where customer wins an auction and they think they're going to get some type of designer merchandise, and instead, say I order an iPad off of eBay, and I receive in the mail a box with a brick in it, or a box with broken radio parts in it. I clearly did not receive what it was that I had ordered. Again, Visa has a process where we can assist the cardholder in those circumstances. Similarly, for poor or incomplete service, so say that I hire a contractor to come in and do some work around my home, and they either don't finish the job or they make a mess of things. Either way, that could be a circumstance where Visa is going to offer the cardholder some protections, and we're going to have that obligation to go in and assist the cardholder. But understand, in these circumstances where Reg E does not apply, we then are not obligated to provide provisional credit. We're not going to be obligated to complete our investigation within the Reg E timeframes that we're going to talk about. And also, we have a lot more flexibility in requiring things of the cardholder. Say, make them write a dispute letter, make them go back to the merchant first in order to try to resolve the dispute before you'll accept a chargeback. As we're going to see with Reg E claims, we can ask for but not necessarily require that extra documentation that Visa is looking for. And so as we move into dispute documentation, this can present a huge difficulty for financial institutions when you've got an obligation to investigate a claim under Reg E, but you don't have all of the information that you need to open an investigation and file a chargeback through Visa. What do we do in those circumstances? I think there's probably a lot of institutions out there that end up just writing the charges off under Reg E because they don't know which way to turn. And so as we look through the Visa process, one of the things we're going to want to discuss is some of those investigation options where we can complete an investigation and possibly avoid taking a loss that we don't have to take. So when we talk about Reg E, first and foremost, we want to talk about what is the documentation that is required, or what can we